We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 53b. The Mishnah said Chalatz v'yasa maimer v'nasan v'chulu. It said again, if you do chalitza, then nothing is effective after the chalitza. So the Gemara says Bishlama Chalatz v'yasa maimer. I understand why the Mishnah has to give a case where you did chalitza and then the person did a maimer. So Itzrich. So there we need that case. Because I might have thought Nigzer maimer de bazar chalitza atu maimer de kame chalitza. Maybe you make a gezerah. Of course, if a maimer is done before chalitza, the maimer is going to be effective. There's going to be a requirement of a get for the mimer, so maybe we should make a gezer when a mimer is done after chalitza, the same thing. So kamash malon. So the Mishnah is saying no, we don't make such a gezer. Kamash malon de lo gazrinan. The Mishnah teaches we don't make a gezera. Ela chalatz v'nasan get. But if chalitza is done and then a get is given, so lamali, what do we need that case for? Of course, the get is not going to be effective once chalitza was done. The whole situation is finished. So the Gemara says no, but according to your reasoning, if you're asking a question like that, ema seifa, look at the end of the Mishnah. You can ask a similar question. Baal v'asa mimer. So you had a case over there where they have relations and then there's a mimer. Or Baal v'nasan get, he has relations and then there's a get. So Bishlama Baal v'nasan get. Now I understand the case where he has relations and then gives a get. So Itzrich, so that's needed. Because I might think Nigzor get the Basar Be'ila, we should again make a gezerah by a get in a case where you give the get after Be'ila or to get the Kami Be'ila. We should make a gezerah because of a case where the get is given before Be'ila. Of course, there the get is going to be effective and therefore there might be confusion. So Kamash Malon de lo Gazrinan. So the Mishnah needs to teach us that there's no gezerah. Aval bal v'yasa mimer, but a case where there's be'ila and then a mimer. So lamali, what do you need that case for? Of course, the mimer is going to be effective once they already had is going to be ineffective once they already had a be'ila. Once they had a be'ila, so the marriage is finished. The marriage is consummated. So Ella, so rather, what are you going to have to say? I did the tana chalatz v'yasa mimer. Once we have the case already of chalatz v'yasa mimer, so tana nami bal v'yasa mimer. So we also have the case of bal v'yasa mimer, even though that case is more obvious. V'aydi the boy lemisni bal v'nasan get, and since we have the case of bal v'nasan get, so therefore tananami chalatz v'nasan get, therefore we have the case of chalatz and nasan get, again, even though that case is more obvious. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, bizmanshi v'chulu, it said that if you have a situation of bia that's at the beginning, so then nothing takes effect after that bia. But if the bia happens in the middle or at the end, so then the bia already is a bia psula, and then it's possible for something to take effect after the bia. And the Gemara says, Masnisin de lo ki haitana de Tanya. Our Mishnah is not like the author of the following brisa. Abba Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim omer mishum Rabbi Meir. Abba Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim says in the name of Rabbi Meir, Achas be'ila v'achas chalitza. Doesn't matter if you're talking about be'ila or chalitza. B'tchila, if they're done first, so ein acharei klum. So then anything you do after is not going to be effective. But be'emtzu v'sof, if they're done in the middle or at the end, so then already they're like at the level of be'ila psula or chalitza psula, so to speak. So then yesh acharei klum. So then things that are done after can be effective. And the Gemara now explains the machlokas. V'shalosh machlokas b'davar. There's actually a three-way machlokas regarding this situation. Tanakama savar, the Tanakama of the Mishnah holds bia di'ikol migzar gazrinan. By bia where we can make a gezerah. This was a gezerah again that was mentioned a little earlier. It's going to be mentioned in a moment as well. So there we make a gezerah. We say again, if it's done b'tchila, nothing is effective after. But if it's done in the middle or the end, so then there's we can make a gezerah, and we say something is effective. But chalitza delekala migzar lo gazrina. By chalitza there is no gezerah, and therefore chalitza doesn't matter when it's done. Nothing is effective after the chalitza. Reb Nechemya savar, Reb Nechemya holds bionami lekala migzar. Bia also, there's no need to make a gezerah. Doesn't matter when the bia is done. Nothing is effective after. Udeko amrin. Now Reb Nechemya explains that which you said we should make a gezerah. What gezerahs did you say? You said that ligzor bia achar aget mishum bia achar chalitza. You said we should make a gezerah by a case where bia is done after a get. We don't want people to get confused and mix it up with a case of bia after chalitza. But the Gemara says, Reb Nechemya says, no, Kevin the chalitza doraisa made a yodi. Everyone knows chalitza is a doraisa. Chalitza is something that works on a doraisa level to take care of the situation of yibum, and therefore everybody knows nobody is going to get confused between a situation where chalitza is done and then there's bia, and a situation where a get is given and then there's bia. Udukamrid, and similarly, that which you said we should make a gezerah ligzor bia achar maimer mishum bia achar bia. You said we should make a gezerah and bia happens after maimer because of a case of bia achar bia. Obviously bia achar bia, so then that first bia is the one that's going to be effective, not the second one. But again, kaven to bia doraisa, since in that case bia is doraisa, whereas maimer is only derabanan, ha meida yidi. Again, this is known. There's no reason to make a gezerah, and therefore that's why Reb Nechemya says when it comes to bia, it doesn't matter when it's done. Once it's done, it is effective, and nothing can be effective after that. Now, Abba Rabbi Yossi ben Chanan, that we just quoted in the Brisa, he holds like the Rabbanon, the Gazri, but Bia, they make a Gezerah by Bia, and therefore they say that only if the Bia is at the beginning, then nothing is effective after, but if it's in the middle or the end, then it's possible for things to be effective afterward. And also he says, V'gazer Chalitza Mishum Bia. He also says, even Chalitza is going to be the same because of Bia. By Chalitza also, only if it's done at the beginning, nothing is going to be effective after, but if it's done in the middle or towards the end, then something could be effective after. Hadron Aloch Rabbi Gamliel. This is the end of Perek Rabbi Gamliel. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and please see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now begin the 6th Perek of Mesechet Yevamos. And the Mishnah says, Habal Yevemto, if somebody has relations with his Yevama, Bein B'shogeg, Bein B'mezid, whether it's by mistake or whether it's on purpose, Bein Ba'onas, Bein B'ratzon, whether it's a situation that was coerced or whether it's willingly, Afilu Hu Shogeg V'hi Mezida, even if he's the one doing it unintentionally and she's doing it intentionally, or Hu Mezid V'hi Shogegas, so let's say he's doing it intentionally, she's doing it by mistake, Hu Anas V'hi Lo Anusa, let's say he's the one that's coerced and she's not coerced, or Hi Anusa V'hu Lo Anusa, so let's say she is coerced and he's not coerced. In all of these cases, and Echad HaMe'orav Echad HaGomer, it doesn't matter if you just begin the process of the relations or complete it, Kana, it is going to be an acquisition, it is going to be effective, V'lo Chilek Ben Bia LeBia, there's no distinction between the various kinds of Bia. V'chein Haba'al Achas Mikol HaRayos Shebetorah, and similarly, let's say somebody has relations with one of the cases of Arayos in the Torah, or Psulos, or let's say one of the situations of Psulos, Kegon Almana LeKohen Gadol, for example, a Kohen Gadol and an Almana have relations, or Grusha V'Chalutza LeKohen Hedyot, let's say a Grusha and Chalutza, relations with a Kohen Hedyot, or Mamzeres or Nesina Yisrael, a Jew with a Mamzeres or a Nesina, or Bas Yisrael a Mamzer or a Nesin, or let's say a Jewish girl with a Mamzer or a Nesin. Pasal, in all of these cases, the act of relations makes her pasal to kahuna, v'lo chilek ben bia lebia. There's no distinction between the various kinds of relations. Rashi over here says, Habal Yevemto Shogeg Kesavar Shi Ishto Isha Cheres. What does it mean, Shogeg? He has relations with her, but he doesn't realize it's the Yevama. He thinks it's his wife, he thinks it's some other woman. Mezid means l'shem nus. Mezid means he does it on purpose, but not for the purpose of Yibam. He does it for the purpose of just nus. V'lo l'shem mitzvah, not for the purpose of doing the mitzvah of Yibam. Afilu mefarish beGemara. The Gemara says even if he's a shogeg and she's a mezid, etc. The Gemara will explain what the afilu is. Ha'ma'ora shelo gamar biyasa. Ma'ora means you start having the relations, you start the process, you don't complete it. So in all of these cases, kana, there's an acquisition. V'zacha benachla, he merits to have the inheritance because he's done yibam. V'yotzia beget and balahotzia, and also he has to divorce her. He has to use a get if he wants to divorce her. Bein bia lebia. What does it mean? There's no distinction between various acts of bia. Bein bia kedarka l'shelo kedarka means there's no distinction whether it was done in the normal fashion, bia in the normal fashion, or it was done in an atypical fashion, ubein hara l'gmar bia, and also it doesn't matter if it was just started the process or if he completed it. In all of these cases, it's going to be considered bia for this purpose. Also, when it comes to arayos, any of these bios, whether it's going to be done in an atypical fashion or in a typical fashion, again, whether it just begins or completes the process, the same halacha applies. O psulos, or let's say again, he does this with psulos, meaning lekahuna. People who are apostle for kahuna could go in almana, like we said, a situation of almana lekohen hedyot, etc. So apostle lekahuna mishum zona, if he has relations with her, again in these cases, almana lekohen gadol, grusha v'chalutza lekohen hedyot, she then becomes apostle to the kahuna because she's considered a zona with this act of bia. Ugrusha mifsala mitruma debei nasaim hi bas kohen deshavya chalolo. Also, let's say in the situation of a grusha, so she can become apostle from truma from her father's house. Let's say it's a situation where she's a bas kohen, but now again he's going to make her a chalola through this act of relations. She becomes a chalola and she doesn't get to have truma. V'davka arayos or psulos. Now all of this is only true by cases of bia with a situation of arayos or psulos, relationships that are apostle. Avol bias zenus, but let's say bias nus de penuya. Let's say a person just commits an act of relations with a penuya, an unmarried woman. So it's not a situation of ishus and there's a situation of zenus there. So lo meshavila zona. That doesn't make a woman a zona. V'lo paslam in a kahuna. She doesn't become pasal from kahuna from that. Delo ashkachna tana de pasal elo Rebbe Lozer. The only tana that says that makes a woman pasal from kahuna is Rebbe Lozer. The amar panoi habal hapenuya shelo l'shemishus asa zona. He happens to hold that if you have an unmarried woman, unmarried man having relations with an unmarried woman, so then she does become a zona l'kaman bepirka. That's later in our parak, but that's only the sheet of Rebbe Lozer. Mamzeres unesina. So then it also gave a case of, let's say, a Jew with a mamzeres or nesina. So lava psula l'kahuna kai. Mai. So that line is not going on making them puzzle to kahuna, the psula v'kaima, because they're already puzzled to kahuna anyway. Ulinyan truma debei nasa nami lekelamim. It's also not going on truma. It's not going on that either. Viod bias kosher my megarala. Also, if she has bia with a kosher, why is that going to make her in any worse situation? Elul inyan haron nakta. Rather, all it means to say is that even if they begin the process of bia, that's going to be considered an act of forbidden relations. That's all we're saying when it comes to mamzeres and nesina. We're not talking about passing them to kahuna or truma or anything like that. Well, the milki Allah, we're just saying that they get malchus for having this forbidden act of relations. Well, the milki Allah ha yisrael bara kegemara bia. The point is, even if they just begin the process of relations, that's enough to get malchus. And the Gemara says, "Mai afilu," like Rashi said. The Gemara now asks, "What does it mean afilu?" And the Gemara explains, "Lomi boy kamar." The Mishnah means to say not only this, but even this, as follows: "Lomi boy hu shogeg v'hika mechavna lemitzvah." I don't need to tell you in a case where he's doing it b'shogeg and she's having intention. Let's say he thinks it's another woman and she's having an intention for the mitzvah of yibam. Inami hu mezid v'hika mechavna lemitzvah. Let's say he's b'mezid and she's having kavana for the mitzvah. He's just thinking of znus. I don't need to tell you that in those cases it's effective. Ela afilu hu shogeg v'hi mezida. Let's say even in a case where he is shogeg, he thinks it's another woman, and she's mezida, meaning she just wants to have znus. Nobody is having an intention for the mitzvah. The tarvayu loka mechavni l'shem mitzvah. Both of them are not having intention for the mitzvah. Afilu hachikana. Nevertheless, there's an acquisition over here, and the yibam is effective. And the Gemara continues: Tani Rabbi Chia taught afilu shneim shogegim, shneim mezidim, shneim anusim. Even in situations where they're both shogeg, both mezid, both anusim, again, in all of these cases, there's going to be an acquisition. And the Gemara continues: Anus demasnis and hechidami. What exactly is the case where he is forced into the act of relations in our Mishnah? Let's say you say that the non-Jews are forcing him to have relations with her, but that can't be the case. But Rava says, Ein onus la'erva. There is no onus for erva in that kind of a situation. Because it's impossible to say that there's an erection unless it's ladas, unless it's intentional. Automatically, kishoy is considered intentional, and therefore it's not considered onus at all. So ela biyashin. So rather, the Gemara says it must be that he's sleeping, as Rashi over here says, ela biyashin sheniskashe kushu yashin. He has this kishoy while he's asleep. V'yomer Rav Yehuda, but Rav Yehuda said about that, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Dalid Amud Aleph.